What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and like I said, whenever it comes to the Premier League around this time of year, if I ended up missing one week and not being able to get a review for that week before the next week started, I'm gonna have to do 2 weeks in a row. So, without further ado, this is a review of week 21 and 22 for the Premier League. There are a few things to talk about in some of the games that I have to remember to talk about because it has been a little while. But we're going all the way back to starting on December 30th. Um, let's get right into it. So first of all, we see Watford versus Swansea. Watford losing 2-1 at home against Swansea, who really have not been playing well at all. Yeah, it's a bit of a disappointment for Watford, to be sure. And I can't remember. I think Swansea had already fired Paul Clement at this point. I think this was what's his name, Carnival Howe or something like that. I don't remember how to pronounce it, but some guy that has been coaching in the championship, and they brought him in. It's just kind of like, is he going to be able to do the job well enough? But then they managed to turn it around and get a win. And I mean, I don't think, yeah, their next one was a loss at home to Spurs, but it was still kind of like that sort of gave them a little bit of hope going into the next few games, probably, that they can get some good results and get themselves off the bottom of the table. I still just didn't see enough whenever they played against Spurs, though, to suggest that they had gotten themselves out of any sort of rut. For Watford, though, we see a loss here at home, and then their next game was against Man City away, and they lost that one 3-1 as well. So, yeah, not really a good time for Marco Silva and Watford right now. Still trying to figure out exactly what to expect from them, because some weeks it looks like, hey, maybe they've got it back, and then some weeks they look terrible. So, not really sure what to expect from them, but I will say that they put up a decent show against Man City. For the most part, especially considering the fact that you just lost at home to Swansea, you'd expect them to just go get crushed by Man City, but they didn't. They put up a fight. They got a goal out of it too, but at that point it was already like the game was over. But they did manage to hold them to 0-0 for a little while, and then managed to hold them 1-0 for most of the second half as well. So, yeah, it was a good fight from them, just not good enough. Next up, Newcastle Brighton 0-0 draw. Not really shocking from either team. Uh, I'm kind of doing this sort of like a look at their first game, look at their second game type of thing. So maybe whenever I get to the second games, I can already talked about most of them. But yeah, Newcastle, they draw that one at home, and then they go and beat Stoke away 1-0. I'll talk about Stoke in a second, but for Newcastle, it's not too bad results, but I think they're going to one at home. Yes, winning away sort of makes up for the fact that you drew at home, but it doesn't really help that much because I mean you drew at home to Brighton. That's not good enough. And they've had a couple results like that for most of the season where it kind of feels like, yeah, you're not getting the result that you should be getting. You're dropping points at home to teams you should not be dropping points to. That's kind of been the story of Newcastle's season, and it's why they're not quite safe. They're just on the verge of being in the danger zone. And results like this definitely put them down there. For Brighton, drawing away, not a bad result against Newcastle. But then their next game, where did it go? I just saw it. Yeah, the draw at home to Bournemouth, who have not been playing well at all. So, yeah, it's kind of like, okay, draw on the road, not too bad. Draw at home, not good enough. Yes, Bournemouth have started to look a little bit better and have really started to show a lot more. So it's not like a very poor result for either game, but at home they should be starting to pick up more points than that. They've definitely not done well enough at home, and that second game is just another show that things are still not going quite right. Next up, we have Liverpool versus Leicester. I'm gonna have to adjust real fast. Sorry. Okay. But yeah, 2-1 win for Liverpool at home. Kind of a pretty exciting game. Leicester go up early in the first half because of some poor defending in the back. Vardy breaks through and scores an early goal. So it's kind of like, oh, well, is this going to be another poor day for Liverpool? But then they managed to turn it around and get the win. And this was then compounded because then they faced Burnley away. And it looked like maybe things had turned against them because Burnley get a late equalizer, but then they get a late winner. And it's just kind of like, okay, so Liverpool feels like they've started to find their groove. But as we know, I think it was today or yesterday. I can't remember which day it was now. But as we know, Coutinho has left to Liverpool to Barcelona at this point. So will this throw a chink into their system? Will there be problems after this? I think a little bit. Coutinho is definitely a really, really good player. So losing him is losing a lot. I know they think that Salah is kind of like their big, oh, it's okay we lost Coutinho because we got Salah. But the thing is, you look at a lot of his goals, and a lot of them were set up by Coutinho. He's looking for him over the top, trying to find Salah. So I don't know if they have another player like Coutinho that can help build the attacks that Salah eventually finishes off. So I feel like their attack may start to dip in form a little bit, and they're going to start to realize just how important Coutinho was to their team. But these two results right here, I think, really give them a lot of momentum coming out of this very busy season. So but yeah, for Leicester, this loss away wasn't exactly the worst result in the world. They put on a good show. They managed to go up first in the first half, just couldn't hold on to it. And then they end up winning 3-0 at home to Huddersfield. So two games not really poor for them. Not a bad performance, not the best result, but then a good performance and good result against Huddersfield at home. So I think they'll be happy over the two games. Next up, Huddersfield versus Burnley. Both teams that very frustrating for both of them, I think. Huddersfield drawing at home will be frustrating 0-0 to Burnley. And then obviously, like I just said, Leicester beat them away 3-0, and they didn't really put up much of a fight in that game. So, yeah, two difficult games for them and two disappointing results, in my opinion. Draw at home, loss away. It's not looking great for Huddersfield right now. They're still out of the danger zone for now. They put themselves in a pretty good position with some of the performances and results they put on earlier in the season. But they are in danger, sort of getting dragged into the really danger zone right now. So they'll be hoping to pick up a few more results, especially as we start getting past this. The FA Cup is going to start wearing down some teams. Some of the top teams are playing in Champions League, and some of them have League Cup competition as well. So if they face any of those teams that are in a lot of competitions, they'll be hoping to sort of start to take points away from games like that, where they face teams that are constantly playing and they have been able to rest. Because I do think that this time of the year for them is definitely the most difficult because you don't really have the depth. One and two, you're not used to playing so many difficult games back to back to back to back. When you're playing in the championship, you can play those games so many in one week because it's the championship. It is a very rough league, but it's not as difficult, I think, mentally and physically. When you get to the Premier League, you have to go 100% every game or else you get beat. So for Burnley, pretty disappointing for them as well, just because they have been playing so well. They put themselves in a very good position, but now they've dropped points, and now drop 2 points against Huddersfield and then lose at home to Liverpool. Yeah, that's 5 more points dropped, and I think now they're out of the top six and into seventh place. So for a team that was just in fourth place like a few weeks ago, now to be sitting outside of the top six is just kind of like, what happened? You're doing so well. Where did the drop off come? I do think part of it was down to the very busy festive schedule. I don't think they have the depth on the bench to keep up with that, and so I think players get tired, a couple injuries. I think that really did hurt them over the holiday schedule. So next up, Chelsea versus Stoke. Chelsea comfortably win 5-0, and as I know, Chelsea then go on to draw against Arsenal 2-2. So, obviously good result performance against Stoke, but at that time, Stoke were kind of dropping, so it's kind of an expected performance from Chelsea. And then to go on the road, and I already talked about my disappointment, I do think they will be a little bit disappointed to get the draw there just because of the performance they put in, because they were the better team for a majority of that. They created the best chances. They had a chance to win it at the end, and then Murata can't get the job done. So, they'll be a bit disappointed with that draw, but I think the win was a good way to sort of wrap up their home fixture schedule. Yeah, I think they'll be looking to take more momentum. There are a lot of games coming up. They've got, they just drew against Norwich in the FA Cup, so now they got another game to play. So they'll be hoping that the players that haven't been getting a lot of playing time, they'll now get to start to use them. Because, you've got a lot of games to play. You got a lot of chances for players to impress. So, yeah, they'll probably be using some of those players in some of the Premier League games as well. And then for Stoke, 5-0 drumming there, and then a 1-0 loss at home to Newcastle, and then they get knocked out of the FA Cup as well. Mark Hughes' job has definitely got to be looked at soon because, I mean, you feel like things are not going well for them right now. There's not been any sort of response. It's been the same old, same old, same old. So yeah, I have to feel like Stoke probably will be looking to see are there any managers available, and if there are, how soon can we get Mark Hughes out the door? I don't know what's gone wrong with him. I still think, maybe in January if they get a couple more players to sort of fill the Arnautovic role and get a striker, I still think he could turn it around. But I feel like he had his moment. He had his chance to change things, tactically, and they didn't work clearly. So I feel like he's probably out the door soon. Next up, Bournemouth versus Everton. Bournemouth 2-1 win against Everton, and then they also go on to draw 2-2 away at Brighton. They'll be pretty happy with that. A win against Everton, who really started to look up under Sam Allardyce because they've just been playing so defensive and keeping clean sheets, and they managed to get 2 goals against them. I mean, that's pretty good for Bournemouth, and then they get 2 more goals against Brighton, who have also been pretty good defensively. So, yeah, I think they'll be looking at this and saying, all right, okay, our season is starting to look up now. I do think they'll still be a bit disappointed to get a draw against Brighton. Not that disappointed, but it's a chance for you to get 3 points against another team that are down there with you near the bottom of the table, and you didn't manage to get the job done. So yeah, I think they'll be slightly disappointed with that, but they'll definitely be happy to get 3 points away from Everton. Everton, lose that one and then lose against Man U at home 2-0. Not good. Not a good 2 games for Sam Allardyce and his boring style of play. Uh, I'm not a big fan of Sam and his defensive style of play. It seems very negative, more negative even more than Jose Mourinho. Yeah, I just kind of feel like it's just so boring and negative that it just feels like it takes away a lot of the enjoyment of the game, especially for a neutral. Going into the some of these games, if I don't really care about either team, I want something fun. I want something exciting, and to see 10 guys in the box is like, so yeah, I feel like this is sort of a call for something to change, because they've been playing so defensive, and they haven't been getting the job done now. This, in fact, not just these 2 losses, but then after that they lose to Liverpool in the FA Cup. So I have to imagine that either he's going to look to change his tactics or he's going to look to get some more players. I know they just bought some guy, some Turkish guy, in January, so I don't know. I'm not sure if he's looking to try to change up his tactics or if he's hoping this guy will come in and be a strong forward. But I have to imagine that things will change soon, or else, they're going to keep slipping and get back down into the relegation battle. Next up, Man U versus Southampton. First of all, Man U get another draw at home against Southampton, but then go on to beat Everton 2-0 away. They'll be disappointed with the draw at home, obviously, but then happy to get the win away from home against Everton. Um, it's been kind of a weird season for Man U. They've had their ups and downs. They've had really good moments and really bad moments. And it's another example of that. The game against Southampton, not the best performance, not the best result. And then they go away to Everton and they have a pretty good performance, pretty good result. So I don't know. I don't really know what's going on with Man U right now. Mourinho just seems to be talking out of his ass a lot. Just like trying to make excuses, trying to shift focus onto other managers and stuff like that. I don't know. It kind of feels a little bit similar to what happened at Chelsea, but at Chelsea the results were just terrible results. You're getting crushed by certain teams. You're drawing against teams that you have no business drawing against at home. So it just felt like it was an implosion at Chelsea. It doesn't feel like an implosion. It feels like though that there are small little kinks, all over the armor of Man U, and they're not necessarily fatal marks, but they certainly are. They're imperative. You need to treat them quickly, and it feels like instead of treating them, Mourinho seems to be sort of festering those wounds, and they're not really getting any better. It's just getting constantly worse. So, yeah, I don't know what to expect out of Man U anymore this season. Obviously, the win against Everton and then Chelsea drawing against Arsenal means they finished the year in, well, not the year, but they finished this festive schedule in second place, so they'll be happy with that. But I think for a lot of Man U fans, they're not happy with what they're seeing right now. They're not happy with the style of play Mourinho has. They're not happy with some of the things he's been saying, some of the attitudes it seems to be going around. It just feels like things are not really great at Man U right now. So for Southampton, draw away from home from at Old Trafford, good result. And then their next result was a 2-1 loss at home against Palace. That's not good. The draw is like, okay, we drew 0-0. We managed to get a point away from Old Trafford. Great. Now we're going home to Palace. We should win that, right? And then you lose. To be fair, Palace have definitely stepped it up, so I'm not taking anything away from them. But yeah, it's kind of like, why? What happened? And that's honestly, it's been kind of similar to Man U. Southampton's season has been very. You've had a couple good games where it's just like, oh, well, that was a good performance. They put on a good performance against both Manchester clubs, to be fair. But then there are games like this against Crystal Palace where it's like you have no business losing, and yet they do. So it's been pretty bizarre for Southampton this season. I don't really know what to expect from them going forward. Next up was kind of the big shocker over these 2 weeks, and that is Palace versus Man City. Man City managed to not get 3 points for the first time in a long time, and it's against Palace. Who knew? Yeah, it was pretty entertaining for a game though. Just Man City trying to break through Palace, who were being very defensive. Palace just being very rough, trying to be physical and just really trying to take the game to Man City as much as they could, and then had a chance to win it at the end, and then Milivojevic scuffed his kick. But there are a few things that I did want to talk about in this game, because one, after this game is when Pep gave his whole like, oh, we're killing the players, we're this whole tight schedule, it's killing all of the players, and now everyone is talking about, oh, do we need to change the schedule? Do we need to change up our winter schedule? And here's my problem with this. This has happened now for I don't even know how long the league's been in existence. I think it's had to have been over like 2 decades now. I feel like it's been in existence. And this is always how it's been. As long as I can remember watching, it's been busy during the winter months. And you have to rotate your team. Everybody has to do it. Every team has to deal with it. You have to deal with some players that have fatigue. It just happens. But because Pep comes in and says something, now all of a sudden everybody in the media is talking about it. And I'm just like, this is bias at its finest. Like, we've had managers complain about it before. We've had managers say, hey, this is too busy, we need to change, we need to think about changing. But nobody ever talks about it. But now Pep, Pep says something. Oh my gosh, guys, Pep said something. We need to listen to him. It's like you're just fueling his ego. There's no reason to. And it's like that for most of the Man City team. Punch and challenge on De Bruyne. Everybody's calling for him to be sent off. I'm like, why? Like, he's trying to kick the ball and clear it back in. De Bruyne pokes it away, and then he catches him. Okay, he gets a yellow for it. That's deserved. And everybody's like, no, he hurt De Bruyne. He hurt our precious little baby. He needs to be banned forever. Like, for what? Like, I've seen Tottenham players going studs up onto people's knees and nobody's talking about it. But as soon as De Bruyne, it happens to De Bruyne. We need to protect our little baby. We need to protect our little precious De Bruyne. Shut up. Just shut up. The funniest thing about all of this is he gets stretchered off. He's all like dramatic and stuff, and everybody's like, I hope he gets better. Oh my gosh, he's gonna be away for so long. He's back in the next game. And what makes it even funnier is the FA Cup game yesterday where Man City's playing Burnley. They go up 3-1, and Pep's talking about, this busy fixture schedule. Oh, it's so busy. Oh, how dare they, put so many games back to back to back. Well, just don't put in your starting team, right? Well, he didn't start Walker. He didn't start De Bruyne. They're 3-1 up. Hey, let's put Walker and De Bruyne in. Why? You're the one complaining about all of the busy fixture schedule, and then you're going to put in your starting team against a team where you're already beating them 3-1, and there's no danger. Burnley hadn't threatened them for like the past 20 minutes, and you're going to put in your starting players and risk them getting hurt because you want to make a point? It's just so stupid to me. But aside from all of that, I just wanted to get out a little rant on that because I feel like the media is just so biased for Man City this season. It's ridiculous. The some of the dives that Sterling and De Bruyne have had, and nobody's talking about them getting banned. And then Zaha goes over for a penalty. Karma is a bitch, isn't it, Sterling? Because he's the one that goes in on Zaha and he goes over easily. I'm just like, Sterling has gotten that penalty so many times this season. It's ridiculous. And as soon as Zaha does it, everybody's calling for a ban. I'm like, of course, because he doesn't play for Man City. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It was funny to me because the fact it was Sterling, it just fits perfectly, because that's exactly the foul he's gotten so many times. So anyway, was the penalty deserved? It didn't really matter ultimately because Milivojevic missed it in anyway. Um, but yeah, I think the fact that Sterling's gotten that penalty so many times, I don't mind them giving it to Zaha. Why not? Finally, a referee that's not scared of giving something against Man City. So anyway, but yeah, for Palace though, that draw was just invigorating, and honestly, even the fact that they nearly won it, a little bit disappointing. But at the same time, it's like we could have won that. We could have beaten Man City, who nobody else has beaten this season. I mean, that's kind of invigorating for them. And so they take that momentum. They go to Southampton. They manage to win that game too. I feel like for them, it's really starting to come together. Roy Hodgson has finally started to find a working just pattern at Palace. So I feel like it was a good 2 games for them, to be sure. For Man City, they draw that one, but then they go and they have a pretty easy game against Watford. So I think they'll be happy with that. And then another easy game against Burnley in the FA Cup. So now they go into the Carabao Cup, and they got lucky and got Bristol City in the semifinals. So they'll be happy to not have to face like Chelsea or Arsenal in the semifinals twice, and they don't have to worry about it that much. So they'll definitely be happy for that. But it was definitely, even though the draw will be a little bit disappointing to end that winning streak, I don't think it'll be that disappointing for them. They didn't lose. They still managed to stay unbeaten. And on top of that, everybody else is still so far behind them that they don't really have to worry that much. So then last up for this first set of games was West Brom Arsenal. West Brom 1-1 draw against Arsenal, not bad. They feel very, very lucky, I think, to get the draw that the way that they did. That penalty was like not a penalty. But they'll take some momentum out of that, and then they go into the next game, and then it's West Ham away, and then they lose. And it's kind of like, you can't seem to build up momentum at West Brom right now. It just feels like they can't seem to get the job done. They can't find that winning rhythm at all. It's just been so for them most of this season. So yeah, it's been bizarre, but I think for West Brom, they're still trying to find their way under Alan Pardew. And I think that's been the biggest problem for them so far, is they already got rid of Tony Pulis, who is doing the job for them consistently all these years. Now you bring in Alan Pardew, and I don't think he's got it. I don't think he's cut out to make it. Especially in a team that doesn't have the quality on the field. You got a lot of old players. I feel like they got to buy players in January, or else it's going to be the end for them. So for Arsenal, though, 2 draws in this period. Yes, one of those draws was against Chelsea, so it's kind of like one team didn't get any points on you. Liverpool, though, did gain points on them twice, so it's kind of like, oh no, what's going to happen now? They're in 6th place right now, actually, so they're sitting pretty well off of the rest of the teams. It's not been good for Arsene Wenger, and it's not getting any better either. So, yeah, don't really know what's going on there, if any changes are going to be made in January. If they're going to look to bring anybody in, probably not. If anybody's going to be leaving, maybe. But yeah, 2 draws over this period, not great. And then last up to talk about is Tottenham and West Ham, because they didn't play the first set of fixtures. They actually played after the second set of fixtures. It was a 1-1 draw between them, but before that, Spurs had won and West Ham had won. So they both went into this with a little bit of momentum. Spurs had a chance to catch up to the rest of the top 4 and get further away from Arsenal. West Ham had a chance to really bounce themselves far away from the rest of the pack down bottom, because that win over West Brom took them out of the bottom 3 for the first time in a while. So they kind of felt like, yeah, we're we finally found our rhythm. We're finally starting to get going, and then both teams draw. It's just like, well, there goes our chance to really get a step up. So, they'll both be happy not to lose because that means they still gain a point on the teams below them. Um, but at the same time, they'll both be ruining their missed chances, which that last game was not that exciting. There were two great goals in it, but those goals, the game did not deserve those goals, So, but yeah, both teams will be looking, winning or draw is not a bad result for either of them. So they'll be fairly happy with their winter period so far. So yeah, I mean that's all those games to talk about. I hope I didn't miss anything too important. It's been fun this whole festive period. Like I said about Pep, I feel like he's just complaining because he wants to make excuses. He wants to have a reason for if they do, they drop points against Palace. He wants an excuse. Oh, it's just too busy right now. If they end up losing, oh, it's been too busy right now. He wants to make excuses, and the fact that the media are eating it up and then like feeding his ego by saying, "Oh, Pep is complaining, so we need to get behind him in this and say, yeah, it's definitely too much." I hate it. I hate it whenever people in the media are biased against or for somebody. You should give your unbiased opinion. That's what media outlets are for. Even this, like, as a Chelsea fan, I could be ripping into everybody else that I hate, but the fact of the matter is, I do talk about Man City. They are a good team. They are the best team in the league right now. Yes, I do have my own personal bias against Pep and his arrogance, but I mean, I don't talk about their games like letting my bias get into it. I don't let that affect it. So I don't know. It's whatever. So those are my reviews of the past two games. I know it was a lot and I'm really tired, so I probably stumbled through a lot of this, but yeah, now I'm caught up on this, so looking forward to the next set of fixtures. It's going to be next weekend, so yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Hopefully you guys are too. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on these games? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Premier League reviews. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.